With the latest agriculture news from across the state and nation, it's time for the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. Here's your host, Sabrina Halvorson.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning on the AgNet News Hour. Coming up later, Doug McKalip, the Chief Agricultural Negotiator for the United States Trade Representative, joins us to talk about recent successes in U.S. agricultural trade. We'll be talking about specialty crop export initiatives and strategies to capitalize on some newly opened markets. We'll have that coming up. Also joining us today, we have a representative from the Milken Institute. We will be talking about the importance of investing in food systems and challenges faced in aligning investments with public policy. Our first guest on the show today is Megan Lawston, Marketing Manager for the International Agri-Center in Tulare. Welcome, Megan. We're already talking about making plans for World Ag Expo, which will be coming up in February 2025. And I know that's something that's very exciting every year for World Ag Expo, and I've been following this for years. The Top 10 New Products Contest. So tell me, can people still put their products into this contest? Is there still time for that? What is the status?
Absolutely. So our Top 10 New Products Contest, like you said, is one of our people look forward to it, right? Because it's showcasing the latest and greatest innovation in ag. And you absolutely can still apply for the Top 10 New Products competition. You can apply on our website, which is worldagexpo.com. It is open for any exhibitors of the show. And those applications close on October 31st. You have about a month left to get those in. But like I said, it's a competition that everybody really looks forward to because it can range from simple solutions all the way up to high-tech devices, but it really does showcase the latest and greatest of what's happening and cutting-edge innovation in agriculture.
Over the years, have you seen any trends develop or with the entries or with the directions that technology is headed?
Yeah, so like I said, it can be all over the board. So definitely last year we saw some AI things, some electric powered things. So they definitely follow those types of trends. But then again, we have really small, simple solutions as well. So they range all over the board. If you have a product and you're thinking it's not super technologically advanced or it doesn't involve AI and those types of high tech things, that's okay. We still have room for you and you can still be considered one of those cutting edge things that's happening and with your new product.
So for exhibitors who are considering entering the Top 10 New Products Contest, what are some of the big benefits that previous winners have highlighted, and how can the recognition from this contest really help a company's visibility and growth?
So a lot of the past winners have expressed a lot of benefits about our top 10. So one of the great things is you're on our website. You're showcased through press release. So you get a lot more of that PR from being in our top 10 new products winners. You're designated on our maps at the show. You have a flag located at your booth. You definitely garner a lot of media attention. So it brings a lot of attention to your product, to your company or organization, that you might have not seen otherwise. And so a lot of people and winners in the past have just said it's really helped boost not only like brand awareness and awareness of that specific product, but just of their companies and organizations overall. Really helps bring visibility to them and really helps them continue to grow and serves as that platform for some of these companies.
So if somebody's on the fence about if they should enter or not, what would you tell them?
If you're on the fence, I would definitely say just give it a shot. It doesn't hurt to put your application in. Like I said, if you're even thinking it may be a good idea, but you don't think, okay, again, I don't have the latest technology for my product, but it is something that's new, I definitely recommend that you just apply because you never know if it may be something that we see and the committee sees as one of those things that really is cutting edge, whether it's, like I said, again, technology or just something that's a simple solution. Definitely apply and give yourself that opportunity.
Let's talk about the seminar series for a little bit. This series is designed to expand producers' knowledge, share new insights on things. What are some of the topics that you're hoping to get this year?
So our seminars are one of the greatest things about our show because they run all 3 days. And last year we had over 100 different special events, seminars, and demonstrations, whether that's a livestock demonstration or whether that's an educational seminar held in our seminar center. So they really do offer such a great platform, just like you said, for education. Over the years, we've had different topics ranging from, like I said, livestock. We have finance, we have international trade, all kinds of things from across the board, which you can see all of those on our website once it gets a little bit closer to the show. But there's definitely a little bit of something for everybody, and those happen every day of the show. So Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And they offer, and you're hearing from experts, you're hearing from whether it's exhibitors or an expert that's coming to the show to share information. You're really hearing things that are relevant, that are innovative, and that are hot topics in agriculture. And so it really is a great place to go check out. And like I said, there's a little bit of something for everybody. So if you haven't been to a seminar before, you're thinking about coming to the show, definitely check out that seminar center.
Talking this morning with Megan Lawston of the International Agri Center. So for people who think I have a topic that is probably of interest to people, but I'm not really sure, or what should they do if they're thinking, like I asked about the top 10, if they're on the fence and they're thinking, maybe I want to share this, what should they do?
So if you think that you have an interesting topic, definitely apply for a seminar. Those applications are also open on our website, worldagexpo.com through October 31st, and put your application in. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to email marketing@farmshow.org. We're happy to answer those for you. But if you think you have a good topic that would be interesting to exhibitors and attendees at World Ag Expo, fill out that application. Again, give yourself the opportunity to be seen and to be heard, and let others learn what you have to share.
So what would be some of the past topics that you can think of? Just, I know I'm surprising you with this, but just off the top of your head, were there some past seminar topics that you felt like really hit the mark?
Yeah, so last year we had a Women in Ag session that was super popular, where it was a panel discussion from some women involved in agriculture. We also have a lot of things on water and irrigation, which obviously is always a hot topic. Last year, we had a panel discussion about Sigma and water. And again, water and irrigation, always heavy topics covered in the seminar center. We also partner with a few local universities. So Fresno State usually has a big presence. We've seen some from others as well. And those usually are the heavy hitters. But again, all of our seminars offer such good information and really are educational.
And again, when are the applications due?
The applications for seminars are going to be the same as top 10s. They are both open through October 31st. So go to worldagexpo.com. You'll find a link to the applications. If you have any questions, again, feel free to email marketing@farmshow.org. We'll be happy to help you answer any questions that you may have. You can also always call our office at 559-688-1030, and we'd be more than happy to help you. But applications are open through October 31st. So even if slight interest to you, go ahead and get that application in before the end of next month.
All right. And then I know that our listeners are very familiar with World Ag Expo, but let's just talk for a minute about what makes this expo so special. I go to farm shows all around the nation, and World Ag Expo really is different. What would be some of the reasons that you say that it's different?
Oh, that's a great question. There are many great farm shows, as you said. I think what helps World Ag Expo stand out is, first of all, we are a volunteer-based show. So we have usually right around 1,000 volunteers that help put on our show, which we are so grateful and thankful for. We couldn't do it without them. We're the largest annual agricultural show of its kind outdoor. We have over 1,200 exhibitors on 2.6 million square feet of exhibit space. So our size and the fact that we really hone into agriculture and what the latest and greatest, again, going back to that top 10, what is new, what's cutting edge for agriculture. I think all of those things really are what make World Ag Expo stand out. And we're really excited and looking forward to 2025.
And I would add again, like I said, I travel to farm shows all around the nation. And what I really appreciate about World Ag Expo is just the focus on the crops that are important to California. Most of the other farm shows I go to, it's all about soybeans. So it's nice to see. It's nice to see a lot of equipment out there for other things, useful for grapes and for dairy and things. So, well, I really appreciate talking with you. Is there anything else that you want our listeners to know?
Just don't forget, World Ag Expo 2025 is February 11th through 13th, and we hopefully look forward to seeing you out here in February.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for your time, Megan.
Thank you. You take care.
Thank you once again to Megan. A little bit of news for you now. One way to reduce the large yearly losses of honeybee colonies is to make a stronger and better bee. Gary Crawford has more.
Well, I knew honeybees could buzz. I did not know they could sing. Well, sort of sing.
Hey, I'm a honeybee. Take a look and see how We're giving it up for the hive. Everything I do is just an effort to keep it strong and alive.
However, those bees and their keepers have been having quite a bit of trouble keeping the colonies strong and alive. You may remember the news headlines that started about 15, 16 years ago, headlines about millions of bee colonies dying off, or in some cases the bees just disappearing, with the nation's beekeepers losing 30 to 50% of their colonies every year. There was a lot of buzz about it for a few years. You don't see much about that in the news these days.
But there's still an emergency in place.
No one knows that better than Chris Hyatt, North Dakota beekeeper, president of the American Honey Producers Association.
Last winter for us was very bad, probably worse in 20 years, approaching like 55% loss.
Back in the 1980s, a 10% loss per year was normal, easily managed. So even though honeybee losses are not making headlines like they once did, scientists continue to work on the puzzle of why bees are not as able as they used to be to withstand things like parasites, viruses, and weather extremes.
We're kind of taking a multifaceted approach to try to solve their problems and make healthier bees.
That's Lainey Bilodeau, research leader at the Agriculture Department's Bee Laboratory in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, one of a half dozen USDA Ag Research Service bee labs. We talked with her at a pollinator event here in Washington, D.C. Now, scientists think there are many reasons for increasing bee losses. One big one, climate change.
We know that that's affecting them because it's affecting when flowers are blooming. Because they're flowering too early or they're flowering too late, and it doesn't match when the bees need that energy. So we're trying to come up with alternative forage that farmers can plant, that beekeepers can plant, that will help sort of compensate for that difference.
Lainey says another problem that beekeepers have had to deal with for a long time is the varroa mite. It's a tiny parasite of bees that literally sucks the energy out of them. And even if the bee is strong,
it's a tough battle for them to fight. And so our lab is breeding bees that are resistant to the mite.
And there are breeding programs at other labs as well to make bees not only more able to survive changing climates, diseases, and parasites,
but also to make lots of honey and build up quickly and overwinter well.
This is Gary Crawford reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Coming up next, we have a guest from the Milken Institute who will talk about food systems and the climate. We'll be back in just a moment.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Sabrina Halvorson.
The Milken Institute recently issued a brief on the world's food systems and climate change. Joining us now is Holly Freishtat from the Milken Institute to discuss that further. All right, Holly, so the Milken Institute came out with some new information recently, but before we get into that, let's go ahead and start off with explaining to my listeners who the Milken Institute is and what you do.
Great. Thank you so much, Sabrina. The Milken Institute is a nonprofit, nonpartisan think tank, really focusing on accelerating measurable progress on the path to meaningful life that we've built for a good foundation for health. So how that really translates when we think about food systems, which is the work I lead, is that food system sits in Milken Health. And so Milken Health, like Milken Institute Health, focuses on bridging innovation gaps across the healthcare continuum to advance whole person health through the lifespan. So when you think about food sits at the intersection of finance, health, and also philanthropy, which are really our key areas at the Milken Institute. So when I think about food systems and the work that we're doing here at the Institute, we're looking at activating social and financial capital to create a more sustainable, resilient, nutritious, and equitable food system. We do that through thought leadership, policy, and research.
Great. So the Milken Institute recently put out a brief called Insights on Investments in Food Systems Transformation, Pathways to COP30. Long title, but let's go ahead and start out with just giving me a little bit about what is this brief about and explain it a little bit to our listeners.
Absolutely. So this insights brief is really looking at thought leadership of views and perspectives on how we need to transform our food system. Because what we know around the food system is that a third of greenhouse gas emissions are coming from agriculture and from the whole food system, from how you grow, process, transport, manufacture, and waste foods. And we're not just talking agriculture, we're talking the whole food system. And so often we hear people talk about agriculture only, where agriculture is a part of a system and we have to address the whole system. So when I say a third of greenhouse gas emissions is coming from the food system, but what I think is really important to note here is that food systems is also a huge part of the solution. So we may be contributing part of the problem related to greenhouse gas emissions, but we're also one of the greatest solutions to be able to address these issues. So really what we're looking at in this insights brief is thought leaders from all over the world, from many of our events, from Singapore to Los Angeles to Abu Dhabi, hearing different perspectives. And these perspectives are coming from investors, growers, nonprofits, academics, looking at many different angles. And here is one of the big key points. There's not one solution. There's not one solution. There is not going to be a consensus, and that's not where we need to focus. We need to focus on the different angles to addressing the issue and the solution.
So, from what I understand, it's only a very small percentage of climate financing investments that are directed toward food systems. And if that's true, and if it's not, please correct me. But what are some of the primary barriers preventing bigger investment in this area that is so critical?
So thank you for this question. This is probably one of my favorite answers. So we're looking at less than 4% of climate finance is going to food system transformation. So to define that, less than 4% is going towards food systems, which is a third of greenhouse gas emissions. So how are we going to ever address these issues unless we look at the shifting of investment? And so the question is, why are investors not necessarily seeing this as an issue? It's because we're siloed. You think of food systems, right? And then you think of climate. Food is a climate issue. Climate is a food issue. And so I think the more that we start to break down these silos and start to understand that when we're talking about climate finance, food systems is a part of climate finance. And I think that is the first and foremost important part. The second thing is that when you think about investors, right, you think about transportation or energy. It's a relatively simple way to understand it. It's vehicles, it's cars, maybe airplanes. When you think about a food system, it's vast. It's all the different agricultural products that are being grown all over the world, from smallholder farms to mega farms, from many different types of crop, whether for food or for fuel, right? And then you have, in addition to that, you have all the transportation, manufacturing, and processing and waste. So it's much harder for people who don't study and be in this subject every single day to understand how much the food system is impacting climate and how much climate is going to impact our food system as well.
And that is, it's a great point. What can be done to help make those connections between the different parts of the food system and help just generally key players understand how important it is to make this investment?
So in this insights brief, we talk about 4 key themes, and then I'm going to give you 3 solutions. But I'm going to first answer your question a little more higher level and then go into more details. So when you think about these 4 themes that we share in this insights brief, one is really this timing between private investment and public policy. And when it's mistimed, we don't necessarily see the impact we want. So when the private sector is coming in and they're going to take a risk to change their practice, to be able to support change practices in the food system, then we're going to need to be able to see the public policy, the subsidies to be realigned to address these goals. And so that is one piece. It's this timing between private sector investment and public policy. And so when you look at a solution related to that, it's really looking at aligning those two together. The second key theme here, which I think is really important, and I just came back from Climate Week in New York City last week, and this conversation I always hear is, oh, food is a risky investment, right? Oh, it's too risky. We rather invest over in technology or whatever it may be. But here is really the real question in the frame. It's risky to not invest in the future of our food, and the future of how we grow and process and transport our food in a changing climate. And I think we're missing the mark, and we're continuing to lift this up. It's risky to not invest in the future of how we need to grow our food, where we need to grow our food, because our temperatures are changing. And that means where our crops are growing will change. So we really need to be looking at that future. And to be able to look at the type of investments that are needed, we might need more patient capital, right? More patient, so that it's a longer term approach and it's not an 18 months fix. Food is complicated with many different regulations. So we can't necessarily try to turn some of these big changes in 18 months. You look at a grower's growing cycle, it's years of planning. So we need to be looking at this trajectory from a longer term patient capital perspective. So that's the second theme. The third theme is really thinking about how do investors think about food systems and investments. And we talked a little bit about this already, but I think it's really understanding the importance of making sure they research and understand the food system and the timing that is needed for the investment. And then that's really talking about the kind of key themes. And I can now go into, if you like, the key opportunity areas.
Yes, please do.
Okay, so going back to, we so often, and I should have prefaced this, is that years ago, I lived in Washington State and I was an agricultural marketing director at the time. And so I've had my hands in the soil. I've also worked in livestock in the past. And that when you think about agriculture and growing, we don't always think about being at COP28 in Dubai last year and being a part of these climate conversations from the agriculture to the whole food system perspective. And we saw something transformative happen last year at COP28. And what we saw is a declaration on sustainable agriculture, resilient food systems, and climate action. And almost 159 countries signed that. So we're seeing the commitment, right? But we now need to see those commitments go into action. So when we look at what the future holds in actionable steps, we need to make food systems conversations finance forward. That's number one. Number two, we really need to look at these large convenings of policies, or COP30 coming up next year. We need to be thinking more than just 1 year at a time. So we have COP29 coming up around the corner in a month or two, but we need to be thinking about how do we get these commitments at the COPs and how do we implement it. And then the third key action is synergizing public policy with private capital. And that is really the main focus here, is how do we make sure that our public policy aligns with the goals we need for food system transformation and have the appropriate financing and investments combined with that, with private and public sector.
We are talking with Holly Freishtat of the Milken Institute, and we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. This segment is brought to you by Live Earth Products. To get to know a little more about Live Earth Products, we're talking on the phone today with Vice President Russell Taylor. What about humates in animal feed? When can you add humates to the animal feed, and what is the benefit of that?
So the interesting thing about animal feeds is, just like the fertilizer side, there's actually a lot going on in legislative processes. So there's an act out called the Innovative Feed Act. And currently, you can't include things in animal feed that are giving you other benefits besides nutritive benefits. Let's say, for example, you had a cow that was eating a product that reduced its methane emissions, that those enteric gases that are caused just in the natural digestion of a ruminating cow. You can't claim that those products do that benefit. So hopefully people will get involved and say, look, the Innovative Feed Act is necessary and should help farmers. Other benefits of feeding humate is obviously first to reduce enteric gases. But the second one, these are old plant materials. So those plant materials are rich in trace minerals. So not only are you getting something that's going to help the digestion of the animal, you're also getting an abundant supply of minerals. So that is the main reason farmers are currently including in their animal feeds.
This is all fascinating, but it can be hard to retain some of this information when you're hearing this on the radio or through the podcast. So is there someplace online, or where can our listeners go and get more information?
Well, the good news is the acts I mentioned, like the Innovative Feed Act and the Plant Biostimulant Act, are publicly available through Congress. You can actually go look at those acts. They're on the website there. The other information you can get is directly through Live Earth Products. So if you go to liveearth.com, contact us. You can contact us and our agronomy team. And we're happy to go over any details, questions about how to use these products, how they fit your farm program, how to use them as a tool to implement conservation practices such as nutrient retention, water conservation, and improving soil health.
To get to know more about Live Earth Products, you can visit them online at liveearth.com. That is spelled LIVEARTH.com.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Sabrina Halvorson.
We're talking this morning with Holly Freishtat of the Milken Institute. How do we get more people to understand the importance of this?
There's two pathways. There's the optimistic pathway, and then there's possibly the reality pathway, right? So the optimistic pathway is that we continue to talk and lift this up through leadership, through convenings, through the media, and make sure this becomes common language. Food systems is a climate issue, a climate finance issue. And the more we start to convene the different players, from farmers to investors, around the room and have everyone involved, that we'll be able to move towards the solution. That's what we want to see. Okay. Then there is what may be the reality, right? We just saw a hurricane down south, and we're seeing many events coming on top of each other over and over, more consecutively all over the world. We're already starting to see reduction in production and growing of food. The more negative side is that we're going to be forced into it. We're going to be forced into this need to change how we're grow, processing, transporting foods. But before I came to the Milken Institute, I used to work for the city of Baltimore as the chief of food policy and planning. And I helped lead the COVID-19 nutrition security response for the city of Baltimore. And I was there for 11 years before COVID hit. And when I was there, I saw we had the most difficult situation, right? Pandemic hit the city. And I saw for the first time in my life how many amazing people, businesses, companies, nonprofits, everybody coming out of the woodwork to solve such complicated issues really fast. And I think in the end of the day, what's going to happen is we're going to see some kind of disruption in our food system and our food supply chain where we're going to be forced into creating this and doing it fast and getting it done. So I hope it doesn't come to that, but we have seen that when it does come to these disasters, we do mobilize because we don't have time on our hands. So I hope we are proactive and not reactive, but those are really the two kind of situations that I would see happening.
And then I would just ask, is there anything that I haven't asked that we should have talked about, or do you have any final thoughts for our listeners?
I would say the final thought is that our food system, we need to think about a food system, not just growing food in agriculture and farmers, but the whole system. And then we need to understand the importance and value of finance in that whole supply chain of our food system. And that even though this sounds daunting and huge, we've accomplished many huge daunting tasks as a nation and globally. So there's no reason why we can't address these issues. And we know that in order to do so, it's really about cross collaboration, from policy change to investments to many conversations to education. But in the end of the day, those are all the different sectors that will be needed to see the food system transformations that we need for this globally.
And for listeners who maybe want to read more about this or learn more about the Milken Institute, is there someplace they can go online?
Yes, you can go online I'm going to rephrase that. Paul's going to give you the link and then you can just say it out loud because I don't know the exact link, but I'll just say you can go to the Milken Institute to Feeding Change, and you will see our insights on investments in food system transformation, pathways to COP30 on our website.
Great. And I will post that website up on our webpage to make it easy for listeners to get to. Holly, thank you so much for your time. It's such an important conversation, and I'm really happy to have you on the show.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you once again, Holly. This is the AgNet News Hour. When we come back, Doug McKalip, Chief Agricultural Negotiator for the U.S., is joining us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Sabrina Halvorson.
We're joined now by Chief Agricultural Negotiator Doug McKalip. Today we'll discuss the latest trade policies, challenges, and opportunities that farmers and agribusinesses need to be aware of. First off, thank you for taking a little bit of time for us this morning. I do appreciate it. I know that you've got a lot going on.
Sabrina, it's great to be on the program.
I read through the press release and I have a few questions, but if you'd like to start out by telling us a little bit about the press release in general and what the message is today.
You bet, Sabrina. Before I do, I just wanted to take a second to acknowledge the hurricane recovery and response that is happening across many states in the U.S. President Biden has approved disaster declarations for all the states involved, and we are working hard to get folks back on their feet and to fully recover from the situation. The fact sheet that you referenced, Sabrina, good news coming out in terms of our economic numbers on agricultural export. The numbers show that the Biden-Harris administration has secured over $26.7 billion in agricultural market access around the globe. The Biden-Harris administration's four-year compiled record is 28.5% higher. So again, the four-year agricultural exports are 28.5% higher for the Biden-Harris administration than for the previous 4 years. So this speaks to the hard work of agencies like USTR, U.S. Department of Agriculture, working hard to make sure that farmers and ranchers have access to new markets and expanded trading opportunities all around the globe.
Most of my listening area is in specialty crops, and I wanted to talk about specialty crops specifically, starting with the Regional Agricultural Promotion Program and the Assisting Specialty Crop Exports Initiative, both aim to broaden export markets. Can you tell me a little bit about how these programs impact competitiveness of U.S. specialty crops around the world?
Yeah, absolutely, Sabrina. A big focus of the Biden-Harris administration on trade, and specifically agriculture trade, has been that farmers and ranchers of all size operations should have an opportunity in international trade. The program you mentioned there, the Regional Agriculture Promotion Program, that's really important because we don't currently have a farm bill. We certainly want to see a farm bill get reauthorized, but that has to take place in Congress. To ensure that we didn't have a lapse in our agricultural trade promotion, the administration set aside $1.2 billion to work on trade promotion, and specifically set aside $65 million for specialty crops. So again, the idea there being that we certainly want to do well on the large commodities, but we also want to make sure that maybe those commodities that don't get top billing or show up at the top of the volume lists on cargo, that they're important too, and that we should place resources and emphasis there. The result of that, and I'll tell you, I was in India in April for the largest agricultural trade mission of all time. This administration has reduced tariffs with India on 10 agricultural commodities. Almost all of them are specialty crops. So you got cranberries and blueberries, almonds, pecans, turkey and duck meat, apples, etc. Farmers are seeing results in all commodities. It's really been a major focus. Even specialty crops see a difference in trade, and they certainly are seeing a difference based upon the numbers and data that we're releasing today.
Yeah, and you mentioned the tariffs, and the administration has reduced tariffs and expanded markets in India, Mexico, Japan. What could you tell our agricultural listeners about strategies to capitalize on these trade opportunities?
The numbers today show that we're 28.5% higher on ag exports than we were previous 4 years, and that's good. All of these doorways that we're working to open up, we need the farmers to run through that open doorway, participating in trade promotion, working through if your commodity has a checkoff program, working with those national organizations, and participating in programs like RAP, which USDA has put out there. Those are important because there are consumers around the globe who want U.S. products. They know the reputation for high quality. They know the reputation for consistency. We've certainly done work within the administration to break down regulatory barriers to make sure there's not a government preventing that consumer from getting access. For your listeners and readers out there, if they're not taking advantage of exports, this is a great time to do so, or if you are, to double down on those promotion and marketing efforts, because we certainly see an opportunity there. So that's why the Biden-Harris administration has worked so hard on agricultural trade, is to provide those favorable environment for those farmers and ranchers.
And let's talk about sustainability as far as keeping those markets open. 20% of U.S. agricultural production is exported. So what measures are being taken to ensure the sustainability within markets, to maintain those markets as well as we can?
The Biden-Harris administration's trade philosophy is very much predicated on, we can work cooperatively to make sure that we open new opportunities, but at the same time make sure that we look out for our workers, our farmers, to make sure that labor is appropriately respected, and to make sure that sustainability is part of the conversation. There certainly are many trading partners around the globe who are very interested in sustainability. In the area of agriculture, our farmers and ranchers have a really good story to tell. They've been practicing stewardship and had conservation plans in place in many cases for generations and decades. We think it's important to go into trade discussions and show the excellent stewardship that our farmers have been practicing for a long time, to make sure that the measurement and the benchmarking reflects what really makes a difference for stewardship, for climate, for sustainability. And that's why we've been super present in places like the World Trade Organization in Geneva, in the World Organization of Animal Health, in the Food and Ag Organization at the UN, to make sure that sustainability and productivity go hand in hand in those conversations, and that we represent well what the U.S. does very well, and that is to produce products that are high quality and do so in a very sustainable fashion.
Could you go into a little bit more detail about why you see it as important to be part of these international organizations?
Certainly in the last 4 years, as we've had record export, and the fact that the numbers released today show that we have secured over $26.7 billion and agricultural market access around the globe. That happens through tough discussions and negotiation, and it happens among regulatory agencies. The fact that the U.S. is present and proactive in international organizations means we have a voice representing our farmers and our ranchers. And I think that's really important. You know, there's been times in our history where leadership has said, we're going to take our ball and bat and go home. Farmers and ranchers want better. They want the U.S. government at the table to look trading partners in the eye, to have difficult discussions. And I think this administration has taken that task head on, and the results speak for themselves. We've got 28.5% higher exports for this 4-year period under Biden-Harris as compared to the previous 4 years. Shows that we can have tough discussions with trading partners, but we can get results and represent our farmers and ranchers in those conversations.
Speaking of tough discussions, there's been a lot of talk lately about tariffs. And I'd love to hear from your perspective. What does it mean? What does it mean to be reducing tariffs versus raising tariffs on different countries we want to trade with? What could this mean to our farmers and regular consumers?
Yes, Sabrina, I think the Biden-Harris administration has demonstrated that we can reduce tariff and non-tariff barriers, and both are important, because even if you've got a tariff reduction, if there's a regulatory hurdle, the farmer still can't make a sale. That's why we put hard work into making sure both tariffs and non-tariffs have been reduced. And the results are there for tariffs. We've gotten tariff relief in Japan on ethanol, which states all across the U.S. produce. We've gotten tariff relief on beef. We've got tariffs reduced in India, tariff on egg exports to Jordan that has gone down, powdered milk duties have gone down. All of those are results farmers want to see. Conversely, talk about across-the-board tariff is not what farmers want to hear, because it institutes retaliation. The numbers we're showing today with our release show that working hard with trading partners, having direct conversations, having bilateral conversations that yield win-wins is far superior than an approach that can antagonize or poke trading partners in the eye. I think that's one of the reasons that this 4-year trade data for agriculture is certainly much higher than what farmers have seen in the previous 4 years.
Do you have any final thoughts for our listeners?
Just want your listeners to know that we're going to bat for them every day internationally around the globe. Ambassador Tai, her leadership here at USTR, Secretary Vilsack and his team at USDA, we're all working hand in hand, cooperatively, in close coordination to get results for farmers and ranchers. And I think the numbers we released today show that, but our work is never done. We got to work hard every day, and we will continue to do that. So it's really an honor for us to serve American agriculture and to be their voice in a lot of these difficult trade discussions. Days like this, when we get to share some positive numbers, that's always a good thing. But we got to go right back the very next day, or quite frankly, this afternoon, and continue to push hard. So that's what we're going to do.
Thank you once again, Chief Agricultural Negotiator Doug McKalip. A little bit of news to wrap up our day. At the 2024 annual meeting, the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture invited experts from the National Agricultural Law Center to discuss the possible impacts of the U.S. Supreme Court's decision to overturn the Chevron doctrine. The important legal principle established in 1984 has guided how courts defer to federal agencies in interpreting laws for nearly 4 decades. During the meeting, Director Harrison Pittman, Senior Staff Attorney Rusty Rumley, and Staff Attorney Bridget Rollins explained that this change could significantly affect how environmental regulations are made and enforced. Pittman emphasized that the reversal could impact crucial laws related to agriculture, such as the Endangered Species Act, as well as the Wetlands Regulation, Clean Water Act, and pesticide regulations. He stated, quote, "This landmark decision will take years to fully play out, but the potential consequences cannot be understated." State Secretary departments often work closely with the federal agencies to implement these environmental programs, serving as co-regulators with other state agencies. Pittman highlighted the importance of NASDA as a resource on critical issues like this, ensuring that agricultural voices are heard in the ongoing discussion about regulatory challenges. That's today's top agriculture news. I'm Sabrina Halvorson. Thank you for sharing your morning with us.
To get more information on the topics you heard today, visit AgNet West at agnetwest.com. You can also stay connected by following us on our social media at AgNet West on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Also look for Sabrina Halvorson on Facebook, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast by searching for AgNet West on your podcast app. Thank you for listening to the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. AgNet West Radio Network, your primary choice for agriculture news.